When did needing money cost you everything? My fiance gave me substances last night, and I still can't believe I survived. The needle mark in my neck stopped bleeding, but my chest still aches when I think about what she did. 3 weeks ago, I thought we were building our life together. It started with a flyer promising $15,000 for couples doing fertility research. Janice and I needed money for mom's cancer treatments. We walked into that facility excited about starting our family. The coordinator handed us paperwork that started normal but got invasive. 3 generations of fertility records, genetic mapping consent, questions about relocating for long-term family planning. They gave us preparation materials to review at home before our next session. The first packet contained basic information about fertility treatments. Then it got disturbing when the consent form started listing couples who'd had adverse outcomes, and the questionnaires asked about our comfort level with what they called acceptable losses in pursuit of reproductive goals. When I brought up concerns, Janice brushed them off and said, "They just want us to be fully informed before we start treatments." But her voice sounded flat, like she was repeating something. A few days later, I went to her apartment to talk about the latest consent forms they'd sent us. I saw her through her window at 2 a.m., typing frantically. When I knocked, she barely opened the door and said she thought I was someone else. I could see her laptop showing reproductive asset evaluation forms. She slammed it shut and mumbled about finishing her consent paperwork. I stared at the closed laptop, realizing that in 2 years, Janice had never lied to me. The next morning at our group session, I walked in already suspicious. All the couples looked heavily medicated with glazed eyes and moved in synchronized ways. When the coordinator asked about side effects, they all responded with the same phrases about enhanced focus and program commitment. Janice's mouth moved with theirs, sounding nothing like herself, and my stomach turned watching it. I cornered the coordinator afterward and asked what was wrong with everyone. She smiled coldly and said, "The conditioning protocols are exceeding expectations." My mouth went dry hearing those words. They were treating people like lab animals. Over the next week, Janice avoided my calls completely. When she finally picked up once, everything came out slurred. She said she felt focused on the program now, that everything else seemed unimportant, including me. When I saw her at the store later, she moved slowly with huge pupils and looked right through me like I wasn't there. The woman I loved didn't recognize me, so I sat in my car and cried for an hour. 3 weeks passed. Then she called late one night, her voice clearer, asking me to meet her at the facility for help with something. I thought maybe whatever they'd given her was wearing off. The building was dark when I arrived. She led me to a room full of documents, still moving slowly, but her eyes looked clearer than they had in weeks. She showed me unmarked pills and said she'd found them in her purse but couldn't remember taking any. I started reading through the papers and found a document titled Reproductive Asset Extraction Protocol. Below it were pricing charts showing $50,000 per viable pair and $25,000 per individual extraction. My hands started shaking as I read those numbers. I asked what they'd given her and felt sharp pain in my neck. She stood behind me with a syringe, her eyes dull again. She said she was sorry, that they'd told her I was interfering with her treatment. My chest felt like it was caving in. My own fiance was apologizing for poisoning me. I could see tears forming in her eyes as everything started spinning. The last thing I remember was seeing her reach for her phone, crying as she made some report. I woke up in the hospital screaming her name. The nurse said Janice had brought me in, then left. I called her number, but it was disconnected. So I drove to the facility but found it empty with a for lease sign. When I tried to report everything, the police claimed they'd never heard of us. I spent 3 weeks searching every hospital and morgue, putting her picture everywhere. Nothing. This morning I found an envelope under my door. It said they'd flagged my genetic profile as high priority for their premium clients, with new programs available at $25,000 per couple.